This month I wanted to mix things up a bit because I've been talking about Metroidvanias too much lately. As always, I'm hoping that by sharing what I've been playing, you might discover something new or interesting. In this video, I'm going to talk about 2 indie horror games, a Super Nintendo cult classic that was only ever released in Japan, easily the biggest game release of the month, a free 2D action platformer, and a game about tax evasion. So keep watching if any of those sound interesting, or feel free to skip around with the timestamps. The Upturned is a third-person horror game with a comedic bent. You arrive at a huge tower and the front desk worker, Ick, tells you that your floor number is 1434. As you take the elevator to your room, a storm outside keeps causing the elevator to break down on different floors. So you have to get out and search for fuses to get it back up and running. Many of the floors you get stuck on are themed differently, and they feature a variety of enemies and obstacles. The gameplay revolves around grabbing and throwing any available objects around you, and I thought that was a pretty neat gimmick. I also like the video filter and the general presentation, but I found the few rare platforming sections to be a bit frustrating. The story is also mainly delivered through Ick calling you, which happens way too often. His dialogue is overly vague and is basically begging for game theory style breakdowns at the hinted at lore. The game has a WarioWare-like goofiness without any actual jokes or humor that hit for me. It feels like the kind of kid-friendly horror game that is made to appeal to YouTubers and streamers in a similar way to Poppy's Playtime and Bendy and the Ink Machine. It's almost as if it was made to sell kids plushies at Hot Topic. This one might be for you, but it really wasn't for me. I found Immortal Mantis to be a surprisingly decent top-down horror game, with a vintage look and some eerie rotoscoping. The puzzles are fun and the story is intriguing, though a bit too ambiguous. Sure, it may not last you more than an hour, but I'm giving it a soft recommendation. It's worth a try if what you see here looks interesting. Alcahest is neat. Sure, it might feel like they cobbled together bits from a few Zelda dungeons, but this Super Famicom only game, with a great fan translation available by the way, is surprisingly good. It's a top-down stage-based action game with 8 very distinct environments. You're tasked with finding and utilizing 4 elemental guardians that essentially act like JoJo stands. You also meet a bunch of companion characters that you can team up with. The music might not be the best, but if you can get past that, I would recommend it. Plus, it was made by HAL, the same developer behind Kirby, and published by Square, so that's something, right? The original Resident Evil 4 is an absolute classic, and will always remain in my heart as the game that marked the start of the modern era of video games. To this day, many titles have built upon the foundation that Resident Evil 4 provided. The original Resident Evil 4 is still as enjoyable as ever, proving that great games never expire. So remaking a classic game like this, as they did recently with Dead Space, can be a tricky task. It's great to see an old favorite get a new coat of paint, and some fresh updates, but it also can be kind of a needless thing to do. That said, they did it extremely well here. I love the Resident Evil 4 remake. Playing through it is a surreal experience. Most of the areas are as I remember, but others have been reworked and rearranged. It was fun to figure out which sections were changed and which ones were the same. The changes to this game are too many to go over here, so I'll just point out a few, such as parrying. You can now use your knife to deflect thrown objects or weapon-based attacks, which is a great addition to a game with an iconic knife-wielding villain. Not only that, knives now have durability, giving you more incentive to think before slashing away. No more relying too heavily on it to conserve ammo, now you gotta really make every swing count. The crafting system has been improved a bit. You can still combine herbs, but now you can also craft different types of ammo if you have the right resources. The treasure collecting has also been enhanced, with a better system for combining gems and treasures so you can sell them for more currency. You can still find those elusive blue medallions from the original, but now they're part of the new merchant requests, which include tasks like exterminating rats and taking out sub-boss-like enemies in previously explored locations. They're a great way to get you to comb the map for every little thing while also rewarding you for doing so. It also has way more intense combat sequences by having way more enemies on screen simultaneously. This remake finds a better balance between horror and action on the whole by providing a creepier atmosphere than the original. This was a common complaint about the original, as it was seen as abandoning its horror roots for action bombast. However, recently the series has found a more tactful balance between the two elements, and it has implemented it here retroactively. The other much discussed complaint about the original was babysitting Ashley. The remake has greatly fixed this part of the game, no longer requiring players to separately manage her health like in the original. She is also much more competent at staying out of the way, and there are more moments that write her out of Leon's care, which is a relief to not have to worry about her so much. The Resident Evil 4 remake takes one of the best games of all time and raises the bar even higher than the original. It's a must-play for fans, and it's a worthy first-time experience for newcomers. Gundevil is a 2D Mega Man-esque action platformer with a striking art style. It's an hour long and free on PC, so really what do you have to lose? While there's a sense of humor that can be a bit too try-hard edgy at times, it's mostly just flippantly vulgar in a way that I can personally enjoy. It gets a bit chaotic in later levels, but otherwise it's polished as heck, and after you finish it, the dev explains how it wasn't the intended release, and that this release was a sort of litmus test to see if there was interest in fleshing out the game into the more fully envisioned version. If you're looking for a free way to pass an hour, I recommend Gundevil. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is a top-down adventure game that pays homage to classic Zelda games, but more specifically Link's Awakening's trading quest. You play as Turnip Boy, who, after not paying his taxes, finds himself on a quest to repay his debt to society. It has an irreverent, lighthearted sense of humor and style that's reminiscent of Adventure Time. It's a short and sweet way to get a quick Zelda-like fix. It has clever puzzles that are never frustrating, and some really fun boss fights. It also has a little roguelike mode that is a nice post-game bonus. The only real downsides I felt were that there's no map, and that with so many NPCs, I sometimes got overwhelmed with keeping track of who wanted what where. Despite those couple nitpicks, I enjoyed my time with the game, and I'm looking forward to when the dev team releases their next title, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, later this year. I highly recommend giving it a try, especially if you can find it on sale or as part of Game Pass. Alright, that's going to be the video. I hope you found something new to try out among the games that I played in March. If you like what you saw, please let me know in the comments or give this video a like. If you're into discovering new games, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.